Hello, Night Nation. Trace Trolko here. Welcome to the Sons of UCF Live. Is the hiring of an athletic director imminent? We have the latest. The Knights ink a pair on National Signing Day, and the road trip from hell continues for UCF men's basketball. Let's welcome in the Sons of UCF, Adam and Mike. Hello, guys.
Greetings, Trace.
How's it going, man? I'm just getting done watching that This Place video again for like the 18th time in the last couple hours. So excuse me if I'm a little emotional here to start the show.
That was pretty well done and much needed, don't you think? I just felt like it restored my momentum and adrenaline there for UCF after a couple of down weeks.
A lot of it was backwards, though. That was disorienting for a while, but we could just put it in a loop for the rest of the night, and we can all just take the night off.
True. So last week you kind of razzed me for having a shacket, so I decided to go with the jacket. And what do you think? I look pretty good for my Zoom interview for the athletic director position with UCF. Huh? What do you think?
Are we breaking news? I mean, there are rumors of a wow candidate. I feel Trace equals wow. I'm going to throw that out there right now for everybody.
Well, I read the job description. Transformational, that stuck out to me. Scrappy, gritty, hungry, pioneer. I don't know about that one, but norm breaker, disruptor. I mean, just a motor that never stops. I mean, it just writes a team player, marketing skills. I mean, it's just outspoken voice. The interview.
You lost me. I think you need the beard back for Pioneer. I think you need the full Pioneer.
And thank you, Mike, for I don't know what it is you wrote on at Sons of UCF on Twitter, but something about the beard, and I don't know what you said exactly, but it humored me.
We were playing the looks like game on the last episode of Sons of UCF. I said the bearded Trace Trolko looks like he was created in a lab by mad scientist Mario Verduzco in an attempt to sabotage the clean-shaven Trace Trolko by replacing the walk and talks with sitting stairs.
It's good stuff. So my interview went well. I'm in the mix. No athletic director hire this Thursday to disrupt all of our careful planning for this Sons of UCF live show. But some names have emerged. Brandon Hellwig out with some names. Eddie Nunez, AD New Mexico. Doug Gillen, AD Appalachian State. We, of course, have talked about Scott Carr, currently the interim athletics director. Mark Allnut, Buffalo. Would UCF go back to Buffalo for an athletic director? Beth Goetz, Ball State. Zach Selman, associate AD at Oklahoma. And Brandon mentions a wow candidate, a surprise candidate, which could possibly be a name being mentioned now. Jim Sturk, AD at Missouri SEC school. Dr. Alexander Cartwright with ties to Missouri. Are you wowed by that name, Jim Sturk?
I mean, not the name itself. I think, though, if there's going to be a wow portion of that conversation, it's that a sitting Power 5, quote unquote, and an SEC, quote unquote. I guess that's not quote unquote. He actually is in the SEC. To potentially have somebody of that ilk interested in coming to UCF, I think initially does make your head go, "Oh, that's interesting." Whether or not he runs a good department in Missouri, whether or not things are, going favorably. I don't have all those details yet. So the initial response was, "Oh, gee, okay, an SEC AD, that's interesting." But it also makes you wonder, why does an SEC AD would come here? What are his motivations? I think that's more of the things we'll have to unpack to understand fully if this is a good idea or not.
How much does the average fan know about just any AD in general? I mean, we know about the ADs at our school, maybe a couple other. You know about the guy at Florida, Strickland. You've heard some big names, maybe the guy from Notre Dame, or Danny White's dad. You've heard of Oliver Luck. But does anybody really know anything about these ADs at all these other schools? It's impossible. You're telling me people keep up with the players, they keep up with the head coaches, and they know the ADs at all over the place? So we're basing our opinions on these fan speculations and message board. I don't know anything about these guys. I'll just be honest. We know that he's at an SEC school now, but Danny White was making more money than a lot of these guys at the SEC. So why not come to Orlando? Money is not the issue, and you get to live in Orlando instead of a place like where is Missouri? Branson, Missouri, or whatever city it is.
Columbia,
Missouri. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer.
I like that how just 2 weeks removed from Danny White leaving, money suddenly no object at UCF, thanks to the $6+ million we're getting from the University of Tennessee. Now we can pay athletic directors possibly from Missouri, but I agree, most people don't know and not on the search committee, but be interesting to see this jobs posted through February 5th, which is Friday. Does it mean we go through the weekend without an announcement and they hold on to something into next week? And then, of course, a week ago, speculation that Scott Carr might get the job, the internal candidate, which, of course, remains a possibility. But what does it do for the Jeff Lebby for head coach candidacy? Shakes things up if you bring in someone other, perhaps, than Scott Carr.
Yeah, certainly. I think the first task of this particular person, whoever it happens to be, will be that football coach, right? And I think the players have made no secret about the fact that Jeff Lebby is their preferred target. So, will any of the folks on this list, either the mystery candidates or anybody listed, how much will that factor in? Obviously, people want their own guy, right? So you look at this list of people and you can think about particular names that maybe they want, right? So Zach Selman, who has got a really weird tie to the Bulls I'm not comfortable with. He's from Oklahoma. There's Alex Grinch, the D coordinator at Oklahoma. His name has been mentioned, right? So is that a combo platter? And so I think those are the things that kind of concern you. Is this AD is going to make that hire. Certainly is unfortunate for Scott Carr if he's not one of the top 2 or 3 favorites right now. I think he had a lot of positive momentum, but again, UCF's really weird with these things. We've all seen this before: names out of left field, smoke screens, trial balloons, the whole 9 yards. So I don't know that anybody knows anything at this point, even though some of the reporting and the sourcing is really from really solid people. Who the hell knows where this thing goes at this point?
I have to think a huge part of the interview process is the ADs presenting who they would go after as a head coach, because that's going to be the biggest decision they're going to have to make. And Adam's absolutely right. All these names that we're seeing right now, I bet my money that it's probably none of them. I think it's a better chance that it's somebody that has not been mentioned yet, just like it was when Danny White was hired. UCF seems to do a good job of not having any leaks when it comes to things like this.
Well, hopefully it times out, since it didn't time out for the live show, that you'll have opportunity to talk about it on the next all-new Sons of UCF podcast. And what sort of came and went with a bit of a whimper, National Signing Day, usually a big deal. UCF announces just 2, and interim head coach Randy Shannon with the statements out on defensive tackle Thomas Zion, Atlantic High School, Delray Beach. And okay, Adam, you or I? You want to flip a coin? You want to try it? 4-star wide receiver out of Hawaii?
Titus Mokiao Atamalala.
I think
Mokiao
that is good.
Atamalala. I feel like I have a neutral third party here who may know something, who gave us a thumbs up in the window here. So I'm going to go Titus Mokiao Atamalala.
Not bad, not bad. And Dylan Gabriel, very instrumental. It gave us a little wind in our sails last week when it had been several weeks of shocking news to UCF that, he describing it as the best couple of days of his time at UCF. And then he very instrumental in bringing in Titus, and now 24/7 ranking UCF's class coming in right now at 55, still 4th in the American behind Cincinnati, Memphis, and SMU. However, a big boost from a big-name wide receiver, Mike.
Yeah, and those rankings, I mean, you redo those in 4 years after you see how they turn out in college. They're so bunched together at this point. They're pretty much a toss-up between those 4 schools. But it's good to be towards the top, obviously, of the conference. And this guy was a huge get for us. So he bumped us up to where we should be in the top of the conference.
Well, also a huge get for us is this week's first guest, all the way from Hawaii, KHON News 2 sports reporter Alan Hoshida. See, I butcher your name after we talk about it. See, I got Titus down. Adam steals it. I butcher your name, but I appreciate you joining us on the Sons of UCF Live. See, the first question was going to be how to say Titus's last name, but it looks like Adam covered that for us.
Yeah, I got it. Titus Mokiao Atamalala. That was right there. So I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm excited and great to talk about some Hawaii prep guys and just join the pod and the live stream.
Thank you so much for being here. Well, tell us more about Titus. What kind of athlete do we have coming here to UCF?
Explosive. I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind, and a guy that could play both sides of the ball. And very good at both sides of the ball, and that's why he was recruited as a defensive back, wide receiver, and he's explosive. You give him the ball, and he's going to break free. A lot of the passes that you see were a lot of passes that you see in the UCF offense, where it's just underneath, and then all of a sudden it's 80 yards to the house. So I think he's going to fit into that really well. He's about 6'1", 175, 180. Maybe has a little bit more room to grow into, and he plays that physical too. He's not that size and doesn't use it. He uses it, and when he fills out a little bit more, he'll go up and get those balls. That's another. He'll high point balls. He has great ball skills. And I think they're getting a really, really good weapon for Dylan Gabriel.
Well, Alan, one of the unique quirks here is that UCF currently has no head football coach. And as it was coming down to the wire, obviously a lot of schools were after Titus. So were you surprised, or do you have any understanding of why he's stuck with UCF despite the fact that there are some unknowns going on right now?
Well, I was surprised, obviously, just because you see the head coaching leave and then you don't know what that means. But from my understanding is it was Dylan. Dylan was the guy that stabilized the ship, and they're family friends. So, and they've gone back. And then also Mackenzie. Mackenzie came back after he made his decision, came back and threw, and he threw with Titus at a field out here, and he was instrumental as well. So I think the coaching obviously is a big deal, but having a guy throw to you that you're comfortable with and and then you have Lokahi right there as well at guard. You have three guys that can help you develop on and off the field, and I think that's really important for Hawaii kids.
You mentioned the guys, Mackenzie Milton, Dylan Gabriel. We already have now 4 Hawaiians on the UCF team or in the last few years. How has Hawaii embraced UCF? Are we now the official, I guess, number 2 school among fans out there?
I don't know. Notre Dame's pretty close too. Notre Dame has 4 on their roster as well, and they keep getting the pipeline too. But UCF has really seemed to embrace Polynesians and Hawaiians and kids from Hawaii as their own, and that's a really big thing when you can build family, because in the Polynesian culture, family is everything. It begins and ends with family, and if you can build that and sell that to a recruit, I think that's really big. And the UCF pipeline goes all the way back to Scott Frost, as you guys I'm sure know. Without Scott Frost, there is no Hawaii pipeline, and that goes back to getting Mackenzie kind of last minute. Mackenzie wasn't supposed to go to UCF, and then things changed, and then he did, and now you're seeing that a lot of Hawaii kids like to go there, and the weather is similar enough that it's a wash.
How would you describe how folks in Hawaii that you come in contact with think of UCF? I
think they like it. I think they like how they've embraced the kids from Hawaii, and it goes back to that family. If they feel like the program is embracing their culture, that's a big thing. I think they're explosive offense, so I think athletes in general will like that. And they've only heard good things. And the way that they embraced Mackenzie as their own, and he's going to go down as one of the best ever to play there, that's a big thing too. And just like they say with anything, perception is reality or not reality, but they love it. And there's good marks with UCF and the kids here.
A string of good quarterbacks have really come out of Hawaii lately. Jordan Ta'amu, Tua and Talia Tagovailoa, Mackenzie Milton, Dylan Gabriel. What is it about the coaching or sort of the play out there that's produced so many good high-level college quarterbacks?
There's a lot. And Chevin Cordero is the quarterback at Hawaii, so they have their own born and bred D1 kid, St. Louis guy as well, just like Tua and Marcus. It goes back to, I think, the development. I think they really start them young, and they have a quarterback coach that works with a lot of them named Vinny Passes. He's really great with them, and they saw Marcus do it. And before Marcus Mariota, just to make sure I say the whole name if people don't know who I'm talking about. But before Marcus, it was a lot of linebackers, linemen, not the skilled positions. But once they saw Marcus do what he was able to do, they thought, oh, I could be a quarterback, and that kind of, as you know, that changes everything. If you think you can be a quarterback, then you can become a quarterback. And now it seems like a lot of programs are looking to Hawaii for the next Hawaii quarterback that's going to change their program.
You guys just ran off the list of all the quarterbacks coming from Hawaii. who's the next kid? Signing day's already passed this year. For next year coming up, is there a kid out there that UCF fans need to keep an eye on? Maybe we can keep the pipeline going and get the next star.
Well, Dylan seemed to indicate that there was a couple other guys that he was in contact with. I don't know the for sure thing. The hard thing for me to tell you is that we didn't have football this year, and we're not going to have football as of right now. As it looks, we're not going to have football, so we haven't seen any of the kids in over a year. But I know Titus's quarterback, Blaine Hippa, he is a guy that has some offers, and it wouldn't be surprising to me if UCF already knows about him. He's a lefty as well. So I don't know if they like lefties, and a guy from Hawaii, there's the name there too, and he already has his ties with Titus. And so maybe. I know he's a guy that's got some buzz, but for me, it's hard because I haven't seen him in over a year. And obviously from sophomore to junior and even junior to senior, there's a whole lot that can change.
Of course, Mackenzie Milton makes a big name for himself at UCF, and Dylan Gabriel follows him. How good can Dylan Gabriel be? We've seen what he's done so far. What do you see in his growth and where he can go next?
I think really if he can maybe he's got all the talent, and he's making every throw, and even if he's not the biggest guy, he can run your offense. He's going to put the ball where it needs to go. I think now it's just closing those games, right? The leadership to close those games in the second halves where this year it wasn't always there. But I think he can be as good as he wants to be and as good as Mackenzie and everything like that. I'm sure that's what we want here in Hawaii, obviously. I mean, we want the great best for him, and he seems to have the weapons and to be able to do it. He's only sophomore starting, and so that means you have 2 more. And then if you really wanted to take the last year, you have 3 years. So I think he's still got tons of potential. He can take it anywhere he wants to go.
Well, you mentioned Mackenzie. Obviously, he recently was in the news. He elected to leave UCF and went off to Florida State. So kind of a two-parter. How surprised were you, and how did that play locally to see Mackenzie leave UCF for FSU? And was there ever any thought in your mind or anybody else's mind that maybe he ends up at Hawaii?
I don't think Hawaii was an option, because for Mackenzie, you wanted to go play right away, right? You can't take that chance of not starting. And obviously, he's a phenomenal quarterback. But like I said, Hawaii already has a quarterback who is just one of the Big West's best, and he's a Hawaii kid. And that says something when you have a Hawaii quarterback that's from Hawaii. I know Milton would come in, and he's also that, but you wouldn't have the surefire I'm going to start type thing. And I think that was important for Mackenzie to have that opportunity to get as many games in as possible. As far as Florida State, I don't think that's surprising. I think staying in Florida was always something that he wanted to do. He loves it there, and it's close to the de facto family that he's built there as well. So Florida State made a lot of sense. To me, it was surprising how quickly it happened, because I'm just, it seemed like he was in transfer portal, and then a couple days later it all happened. And so I know he's healthy, or he's getting healthy, and locally everyone just wants to see him back on the field, and hopefully he stays healthy and can take advantage of this and then take the next step.
Obviously, you guys love to follow your own Hawaii players and keeping up with them on Saturdays. It's got to be a little tough for you guys with the time difference. How does that work out? You guys get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and start watching college football?
It's like a 6 a.m. to like 10 p.m. type thing. So if you love college football and you love sports, you just wake up and it's on your TV. And a lot of it is setting records and having things going. And sometimes we have 5 games that I'm trying to keep an eye on. I'm the weekend guy, so I'll be here on Saturdays, and I'm flipping back and forth. We always have our quarterbacks on, though, because it's the easiest kind of to keep surefire track on. So I always had Dylan's game on, always have Taulia's game on, and everything like that. But yeah, it seems like each year there's more, and that's great for the state. That's great for us covering it. On the downside, it's very hard to keep track of 15 games in one Saturday and be ready to go and pretend like everything that happened in all 15 games, so you don't sound completely caught off guard by something.
You mentioned Hawaii's quarterback being homegrown. Do Hawaiians take pride, though, seeing guys like Mackenzie Milton, Dylan Gabriel flourish in other colleges?
I think you always want to support your own, right? And to see a kid from the islands go somewhere else and achieve goals that weren't always seen for them, I think that's special. I think Hawaii fans will embrace that. And sure, of course, there's the ones that want them to stay home, but that's just not plausible. I mean, going to college is so much more than just playing football, and it's important and everything like that. And that's their main gig. I understand that, but you want to go learn and experience new things. So always staying home sometimes isn't the best option. They want to go out and experience the world and experience new things. And so they do get behind. They love seeing a local boy go do big things. And once they go pro or anything like that, that's their pro franchises. That's who they cover. Those are the jerseys you see, and that's who they become to get to rally behind.
Well, if Marcus Mariota is sort of the GOAT quarterback in Hawaii and lore, who's second? Is it Tua? Is it McKenzie? Who's the, I guess, number 2 chair behind Marcus Mariota?
For Hawaii grown kids, probably Tua. I think that's pretty safe to say at this point. But in Hawaii, there's also, you have Colt Brennan. Colt Brennan's a huge name, and a lot of people love what Colt Brennan did for the Bows and that whole experience of when they were at the top of the game. So Colt Brennan's also a really big name, and I wasn't here obviously back then, but I know he would have his own autograph sessions after practices and stuff. So it's he was a rock star here too. But as far as homegrown guys, Tua is definitely that next one, and everyone loves what Dylan's doing as well. UCF, those are the guys that they're looking to right now.
What about the other positions? I know you said linebacker was a big position. Lineman. If you had to make a Mount Rushmore, I guess, of some of the other position top players, who would they be that people know?
Oh, that's there's so many. I mean, I don't think I could even begin, because I don't, to be completely honest, I don't have the depth of knowledge. I'm not a local grown kid, and so I didn't have the same experiences. So I can't tell you that without, I'm sure, losing and leaving out someone that deserves to be there. So I'm going to have to sidestep that one on you guys. I'm sorry.
All right, no problem.
Long time ago, UCF traveled out and played Hawaii on the island. Now, if they did, where would they be playing that game? Aloha Stadium. The University of Hawaii is not going to be playing its games there. Is that still up in the air? What's the plan if college football plays for them in the fall?
Yeah, they're definitely not playing there. I can tell you that much. That's not happening. The plan is right now is to renovate an on-field facility that they have, Clarence T.C. Ching Field. It's their practice field. It's where they have their spring game, and they're hoping to put about $5 to $6 million into it and get it to a $10,000 seat, because, as you know, the NCAA, that's kind of their bottom of what they need to have. But that's the plan, is to do it on campus. And actually, in a weird way, that might heighten the actual college experience for a University of Hawaii game, because Aloha Stadium is about 20 minutes away from campus. So you don't have as many student athletes go out there, and there's not a nightlife out there or anything that will lure people out there as students. So actually being on campus, if they get it done, which is a big if, but if they get it done, that can actually add to the atmosphere with the student body and give it a more college feel.
Well, let's just wrap with this. Coming in as a true freshman, you expect Titus to make an impact for the Knights this fall?
I think so. I know. So Marlon Williams is probably moving on at this point, and Trey Nixon. And I think I was trying to give comparisons of who I thought body type. I think he might be a body type like Trey Nixon. Hopefully he'll have explosiveness and everything that goes along with it. But I think there's some spots for him, and I think that's probably something that he wanted to at least know, that he was going to be able to compete for some actual playing time right off the bat, because there was places that wanted him to come be a DB, and sometimes maybe you can move into a DB role a little bit earlier or stuff like that. But I think he should contribute, and I think he can make an impact, especially if that all Hawaii combo links up and they get on the same page. That we would love that nothing more if every single touchdown went to Titus, but obviously that's probably not going to happen.
Little rainbow connection there. Alan Hoshida, we thank you for joining us. You can follow him at Hoshida Sports. Aloha, my friend.
Aloha. Thank you.
Okay.
Rainbow connection, guys. What do you think?
I mean, every touchdown, as long as there's like 60 of them, I'm good with that.
Well, he says he's going to be catching a lot of short passes. I don't know if we can consider those rainbows. We have to come up with some kind of catchy slogan. And now with the image and likeness thing, they're going to have to. They can make some money off this little thing.
It's exciting for Dylan to step in the way in which he did. Also shows up former Coach Heupel a bit in that he was not able to bring in a 4-star during his tenure. As I mentioned, interim coach Randy Shannon describing him as a big receiver with great hands, a guy who can go up and make a lot of plays, especially in the red zone. One of the questions that I asked on Twitter this week is, should UCF consider Randy Shannon as head coach? They'll consider him, but if not, should he be retained as defensive coordinator? I gave 2 choices there: time to move on and sure, why not? Sure, why not? 70%. Odd to me that fans have embraced Randy Shannon staying as part of the coaching staff if he is not named head coach. What do you guys think?
Well, I think he's earning some respect right now. I think obviously this interim period, he's certainly the person holding things down. I think we all feel good that he's a veteran coach. He's been through, some of these transitions before. So, despite the fact that maybe defensively it wasn't his stellar performance this year, I think we feel good that he's got some experience there. But listen, I think the money's a factor too. We talked about it on the show this week. To get rid of Randy is going to cost us at least $1, maybe even $2 million to get him out of that contract. So if you're thinking about a $6 million buyout that we're getting from our friends in Tennessee, that's already down to 3 or 4 or 5 million at some point, right? So I think financially we're tied to him for a year. I think that's where bringing in an offensive-minded coach who understands that you're going to have him on staff for another season is perhaps the most prudent financial move. Whether or not that happens from a schematic perspective, I don't know. But I think he gets a little bit of kudos for sticking around and sort of minding the ship right now. And I think that's certainly something to be respectable about.
I was surprised when I saw the results of that because, fans that vote on these things, they're not taking into account budgets and all that stuff. They're going off pure emotion. And if you based it on message boards and Twitter and all that stuff, you would swear that everybody wanted to get rid of Randy Shannon last year with the way the defense performed. So I was kind of surprised. And I think it is going to depend on which coach comes in. I'm fine with cleaning house and just getting rid of the whole staff completely. And if you have a coach that has experience and has his own defensive guys, I'm fine with getting rid of them. But if it's a guy like Jeff Lebby who has experience working with Randy, and maybe he likes working with Randy and is comfortable with him, I have no problem with him sticking around too. So I can go either way on it, I guess, depending on who the head man is.
These polls are scientific, Mike. It's pure science that goes into these polls. Speaking of, we were talking about Titus and some of the changes at wide receiver. You had a pretty notable name on the Sons of UCF show this week. Former UCF wide receiver Doug Gabriel, who may not have been the biggest fan of one Josh Heupel. What did you guys make of that interview? And hopefully folks have gotten an opportunity to listen or will following this show.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It was certainly disappointing if what he's talking about is true, and the fact that it's his perspective. So if he feels that way, then there's some modicum of truth to it. But it would certainly be disappointing if he or his fellow classmates or some of the lettermen didn't feel welcomed on campus. And that would be disappointing if that was indeed true. Obviously this past year was crazy with COVID. We don't know the specifics behind some of that stuff. I don't think he offered a ton of details, but certainly disappointing to learn if him and some other guys felt like they weren't welcome on campus.
Yeah, you always want your guys to be able to come back and feel like they're at home, but that's just a small part of the interview. We're talking Doug Gabriel, man. That's a big time player. He may have had one of the best individual seasons we've ever seen at UCF. Go back to 2003, the numbers he put up, and I was doing some research before we talked to him. He averaged like 28 yards per catch. The guy was a big play machine, 20 touchdowns, which is top 5 all time as a receiver in UCF history. And he was only there for 2 seasons. And if the guy sticks around for 3-4, he came over as a JUCO. If he was there all 4 years, the numbers he would have put up may never have been broken.
Adam, you have a clip from the show the other day, right?
I do, yeah. I think one of the things that we obviously asked him a lot about was his experience with UCF and sort of what he experienced as Josh Heupel was the head coach there. And here's probably one of the more, I guess, memorable sound bites he gave from that episode.
It's just the fact that it seemed like we wasn't welcome. It's like we wasn't welcome. We was trying to, give back things we've learned and just be a part of the program. And it seemed like they went in a way total different direction than anything. And like I said, I can't knock anything because I wasn't in his shoes, and he was doing what he felt was best for his program. But when it came down to the program itself, I have yet to find a program where they go away from the alumni like UCF did.
And again, he didn't offer a ton of specifics there. I mean, he talked a little bit about, some of the game day experience and some of the events that were around there. But again, if that's true, and I imagine that for Doug and I guess some of his teammates, there is some modicum of truth to that. If that's true, that's disappointing. It's disappointing that we don't get a chance to welcome back some of the guys who laid the foundation for UCF. And Doug, obviously, as Mike mentioned, was one of those guys. So certainly, it was disappointing to hear that if it's indeed true. But look, it's convenient now to pile on Heupel, and that's what happens when you leave. So we'll see if anybody else has anything that they share about their experience with Heupel. But if any of that's true, it definitely is disappointing and frustrating.
Well, definitely we have not seen the outpouring of emotion in Coach Heupel leaving, and that anybody's too sad to see him go, right? I mean, is that fair to say from social media and other sources? And as we talked with Jamie Say, Matt Michelle last week, what will Josh Heupel's legacy be? Another scientific question that I asked on Twitter this week, Mike, was with the turnover in head coach and staff, what do you think of UCF football's chances to contend in the American in 2021? 68% definite contenders. So it looks like we got our mojo back a little bit. I can almost hear Mike saying 12 and up. 12 and up. That's your prediction. You're going 12 and up, right?
By the time we get to the preseason show in a few months, I may be at that point. I'm not there yet. But we're definitely contenders. I mean, we have probably the best quarterback in the conference. As you know, college football is almost all about your starting quarterback. Of course, you got to have the other pieces. But we have a lot of talent on this team. We talked about the skill position all the time. We're just reloading at receiver and running back. And the defense was full of young guys that hopefully have the experience now to grow and get better in the next couple of years. So I think for sure we're a contender. We're definitely not in the bottom of the pack. We're not the Cows or East Carolina or teams like that. I know we finished in the middle this year, but we're a kick away against Memphis from finishing in third place. We're just missing the conference championship game. That's the top part of the conference. We'll be right back where we belong, I think, next year.
A kick away and less than 49 points given up. Middle of the pack got 25%. It's a rebuild, almost 7%. Speaking of rebuild, transitioning to men's basketball, with all of these road games, it has felt it's just been difficult to watch. Every other day, there's 20-plus turnovers. Knights lose Wednesday, 75-61, after nearly giving up 100 on Monday night. UCF falls to 2-8 in the American, 4-9 overall. It has been a difficult stretch, Adam. It's without a true point guard out there. It's just been a struggle. And the turnovers, you can't turn the 27 times. I think they had nearly 49, I think. 49, back to 49 is a number. 49 turnovers in the two games against Memphis.
Yeah, Memphis came out with a heavy press, heavy pressure, ball traps, not only off the inbound, but then they would ball trap the second pass as well. We couldn't dribble around it. We couldn't pass over it. We couldn't pass around it. It reminded me of watching our football offense, where, we come out and we just, we score so quickly, we run fast, and it takes teams time to adjust to us. It felt like the same thing with Memphis's defense and their trap. It seems like we just never really adjusted. And by the time we got settled in, well, then it was too late. We were already down 15 and 20, and we're just not a team that can score in bunches like that, that's going to be able to come back from that kind of deficit. We're a kind of team that needs to be within 8, 6, 5, somewhere in that ballpark to be able to kind of, make a run at the end of the game there. Being down that much, we just were never going to make a comeback. Memphis just blitzed us both times. You saw some improvement on the Wednesday game from the Monday game, but, it was almost from the jump. And, you got to commend the guys, because we're playing with a short team. Memphis ran out like hockey line changes, right? There were 5 guys coming in and out at periods of time, and we're just rotating Reynolds and Adams and Mahan and, the same 8 guys coming in there. Finally, Diggs, got the mothballs off, and he was in the game for a while. But, you got to feel for the guys because they are just under a ton of pressure from Memphis, and they're bringing fresh legs out. And after a while, you could tell UCF just wasn't going to be able to keep up with that.
However, I would say in the postgame, and we have a clip from head coach Johnny Dawkins, he's not saying anything about the grind here this week as any excuse. He thinks the team's going to be ready Saturday at Tulsa.
You know what? We have to, we have to be ready to respond. I mean, every day is a new day. Every game is a new game, and we just need to be able to respond. I mean, I don't look at the amount of games or the amount of time in between games. I think most of these young people are just happy to be playing basketball. We played 13 games now. These guys, like I said, would just be ending preseason. So for them, I think they still have a lot more in the tank. We just have to, manage them properly and how we travel and manage them properly and, how we practice.
Knights will wrap up this 4-game road trip Saturday at Tulsa. Boy, I know you guys have been saying you hope you could get 2 wins on this 4-game road trip. Let's just get 1 right now. You want to try and in a house of horrors. Boy, all of these places have been a house of horrors for UCF. Like 1 win in all of these venues in recent years. So going to be a tough one Saturday at Tulsa.
Yeah, it started going back to last Saturday, the game we blew against Wichita. I mean, we had that one a couple times and we let it go, and that started the spiral. We saw what happened in Memphis where we just struggled completely for 2 games. In Tulsa, like you said, we've never won there. So I'll take a win right now. I don't know what to make with this team. I'll be honest, I turned the game off last night with like 9 minutes to go. I just gave up. Monday night, I was thankful we were recording our show. I didn't watch any of it. So I don't know what to do with this team. Hopefully, you hope to see improvement over the last month here, but I don't know. I've given up.
Well, with a packed spring schedule with all the sports going soon, you'll have other options than just watching UCF turn over the ball. Earlier, we talked about interim head coach Randy Shannon, the defensive coordinator. A couple of former Knights moving up in their draft stock. We welcome in now Jonathan Adams, sports contributor to Heavy.com, who put a little coverage in on the Senior Bowl. Jonathan, welcome to the Sons of UCF Live.
Thanks, fellas. Thanks for having me. How you guys doing?
Doing well. I like the backdrop there. Is that Orlando City? You got the Seahawks, UCF. I mean, there's a lot going on there.
We got a lot going on. It's a conflict. I live in Atlanta, but, grew up outside Orlando, so they're rivals. I get it. I get angry messages from people, but
I'm not going to ask who you root for when they face each other, and that has not been Orlando City's strongest, their best faring against an opponent in the last couple of years. But
they did get the better of Atlanta this last season, though. So that little bubble seemed to do some wonders for them. But
that's true. So as I said, Senior Bowl and the pregame practices pretty good for some UCF guys.
Yeah, the guys did great. Richie Grant probably was one of the players of the week, as you guys know. I think Daniel Jeremiah said before that probably round 3, round 4 guy, and projected now to be a top 50. We could even see him sneak up in that. I would be surprised if he's right around that early second round, maybe even challenges for the late first round. And of course Robinson, I think Mel Kiper had him late first round his last mock draft. So I'm really curious to see which of those guys is going to go first. Robinson's interesting because I think he really excels at covering the slot, which we used to think, it's slot corner. What's the point of that? But now with the NFL being so pass happy, that is an absolutely critical position. So we got a chance even to see a little bit of Robinson play on the outside as well, which is I think what he's going to have to prove as he gets closer to draft day. It's really the only question is if he has some position flexibility there. But both those guys did outstanding in Mobile.
Jonathan, we know that Aaron did not actually play in the game. Is there an injury there, or is he just kind of saved himself for future workouts and tryouts?
I hadn't heard that. I know a lot of guys sit out. I had to head back after the last practice, so I was covering the game remotely. But a lot of the guys, the big thing is that it sounds counterintuitive, but the practices is really what the scouts are there for, what the teams are there for. So a lot of guys will end up sitting out the actual game to avoid injury and so forth. So Even a lot of the scouts, a lot of the front offices will head back on Thursday night as well. So it's kind of you would think, oh, the Senior Bowl is really where you shine, but it's that Tuesday through Thursdays where guys really improve their draft stock and maybe make a little bit of money for themselves.
With the combine being canceled this year, how big of an effect does that have on guys at UCF? Now they just have to rely on scouts, maybe going over the game tape and just a one workout day on campus?
Well, I think it made the Senior Bowl a lot more important. So it helped Richie and it helped Aaron do well for themselves, because that could be, as your point, it's weird to have your last impression be in January when the draft's not till late April. But it's definitely going to be a lot more challenging for guys because they're going to have to go on the game film. And as we know, UCF, I think it was up and down this year, but those guys did really well in terms of the defense as far as UCF goes. But those guys did well to solidify their status in the Senior Bowl and leave what's weird, like you said, a final impression 3 months out, 4 months out. So yeah, to your point, it's going to be really game film, and then those Senior Bowl practices are going to count maybe twice as heavy as they normally would. No pun intended there.
Let's dig a little bit more on Richie Grant. What did you see? What did he do that impressed scouts so much?
Well, I think maybe what encapsulated it, you saw that photo that went viral with him pushing the Gatorade or Powerade. I can't remember what the sponsor was there. The Powerade cart at the end of practice. That just shows kind of his leadership ability. But also on the football field, we saw him playing both safety positions. We also saw him in the game. You saw him play some corner on the outside. So you're looking at a guy, potentially top 50, as we discussed, who can play both safety positions, can have some flexibility if he has some injuries where you can play him at corner. So that really solidifies your status when you have not just one position that you can play, especially in the secondary, but multiple positions. So I think his versatility is really huge. And there was the final day of practice, he had 2 interceptions, I believe it was, which is always helpful when you're in the secondary to get those interceptions. And those drills, to be honest with you, usually lean more towards the defense just because the quarterbacks and the receivers aren't on the same page because they're just starting working together. Not to take anything away from Richie, but he took full advantage of that, as you saw, made plays all over the field that Thursday. And some of those clips went viral, I believe. And then with Aaron, I think it was his physicality that really caught people's attention. His ability to jam at the line and cover guys in the slot particularly well.
Jonathan, let's talk about a guy who wasn't at the Senior Bowl, and that's receiver Marlon Williams. He had a monster senior season. Obviously, he's a guy who wasn't afraid of contact, makes tough catches over the middle, had a ton of yak yards as well. What kind of buzz are you hearing about Marlon and where his potential draft status may lie?
I was really surprised. It seems like from what you guys, he didn't get an invite, because I was just assuming it was an injury because people were asking me about it, and I was like, he had to get an invite. But then when I was looking, it seemed like he didn't get one. So that's really confusing because I felt like, well, this group, this class has a strong receiving group. You look at his production on tape. I mean, and he also has the physical traits there too, right? So you combine the production with the physicality that he can bring to an NFL team. And I think the fact that it helps that UCF has brought a lot of receivers as of late into the NFL and really thrive. We saw how Gabe Davis did, making clutch catches in big-time situation for Buffalo this year. Traquan Smith, same deal. Obviously, go back further, you have Brandon Marshall and other guys, but UCF's kind of you could argue is de facto a wide receiver now, the talent that's coming at the position. So I definitely think he's going to get looks in the NFL. I don't know what happened there for whatever reason with the Senior Bowl. And it does hurt himself that the combine's not happening, at least not in the traditional sense. So, but the good news is that he's put film on for several years here, really, really solid production. So I think he's going to do fine. I'm not sure what happened with the Senior Bowl there. I was really surprised to see that he wasn't there, especially because in the last couple of years, it seems like UCF's had at least 1 or 2 receivers there every year.
UCF's got a lot of guys in the NFL since 2017. This year's class, they were freshmen on that team. Some guys made some big impacts. Otis Anderson, Richie Grant, Marlon Williams. How many guys do you expect to get drafted out of this year's class? And how much does that validate that 2017 national championship when you take a look back and see all the guys now that are in the league?
Yeah, no doubt, and I think that's really the selling point for UCF going forward. When you look at this whoever that next coach is going to be, you want to keep that train rolling, because when you're recruiting high school guys and they can see there's a pathway from UCF to play on Sundays, I think that is going to only increase the level of talent you're going to keep getting. So if I had to guess, I would say between 4 or 5 guys. You know, we just talked about 3 for sure. And you would think in those late rounds we get a couple more out there. So. I'm curious to see what UCF does on the coaching front to see how that can help. But in terms of attracting those talented players that can play at the NFL, because there's such a track record, and UCF's done a great job on the social media side of pointing that out on Sundays and pointing that out. Even today, I saw a graphic about the return of the video game and how that's the Built by UCF thing. And I think it's really catching on, and people are starting to recognize just the amount of talent that's coming out of Orlando.
A name we haven't mentioned, what do you think the prospects are for a Tay Gowan getting drafted?
I haven't heard a lot on him. I think he's going to be probably like a day 3 guy, potentially one of those guys that teams could look at again. We saw that a little bit with Adrian Killens last year, who's super fast, but just struggled with being fast in college is a little bit different than when you get on Sundays. And we saw a little bit, he struggled in that Sunday night game, and I think got released. So it'll be interesting to follow. A lot of these guys get looks, even if they don't get drafted, will get looks. It's interesting. The final round of the draft, you have teams working the phones, competing against each other to compete for these guys. And in some ways, it's better to not get drafted than get drafted in, say, like the late 7th round and not have any say in where you're going, because then you get to handpick your situation where you might have a better chance of making the roster. Whereas if you get drafted in the 6th, 7th round, your chances of making the final roster are slim, and you don't have any control over where you're going. So sometimes it's better. It sounds not great not to get everyone wants to get drafted. You want to hear your name called, but sometimes for some of these guys, it's better to be able to pick their situation.
A really intriguing name, I think, for a lot of people, Jonathan, is Jacob Harris. He's got the size. He's 6'5". He's purported to be the fastest guy on the team, which is crazy thinking about all the speed UCF has. But he's super raw from a receiver standpoint. Hasn't played college football all that long. But he's made some explosive plays. Are you hearing his name at all? And do you think there's a niche for him in the league just based on his measurables?
I do, and actually, I was talking to a colleague at the Senior Bowl. I'm blanking on what the name of. There was a kind of like the East-West Shrine, which was canceled this year, but something similar that he participated in. Do you guys know what the name of whatever the event was? And he really did well. She said he really did well. I was talking to another reporter. She said he really did well in the practices, and that the scouts really liked him a lot. And so I think he did well for himself there. That was the final. I think the Senior Bowl was the final, showcase game that we had. So he's not going to have any more opportunities beyond that. But I do think he's going to have a landing spot. I thought he did really well this past season. Really, really consistent pass catcher with great hands, and kind of that new breed of tight end that you want to see that can line up out wide, not just block, but be able to be a real receiving option for the quarterback.
All right, now that you're considered, I guess, a draft guru, I'm going to go over a few terms here. You tell me which one your favorite one.
You should read my mentions. That's clearly not what people think. I appreciate that. I'll send you the $20 later.
Fluid hips, good at the point of contact, high motor, plug and play guy, take the top off the defense. What are some of your favorites?
As far as the draft cliches?
Yeah.
When someone says that they're real twitchy, like I don't really know what that means, but it sounds good. I would like to be twitchy. A lot of times when someone's not athletic, you say like the high motor. Basically, that means you're going to be like slow as crap. You're not going to be able to keep up with the other athletes. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones.
Plays well in space.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, that's good. There's a weird one with like hips. Didn't you say something about hips? Like can bend well at the hips? Like there's just a lot of weird hips. Things. I think sometimes it's filler when we don't know what we're talking about. We just can insert one of those, and no one really knows what any of that means. So you can just kind of throw it in there. Not super helpful on a first date or anything, but definitely throw one at the radio. So you can kind of throw one of those. You're like, oh, this guy really knows what he's talking about. No, he just kind of like looked at Mel Kiper for a couple clips online and memorized them.
I think you got to come up with like a couple of your own.
I know. Maybe you guys, let's workshop that. Someone at me on Twitter, let me know what your favorites are. I could try to work it into my. I'm really just trying. I heard this rumor that Mel Kiper eats a whole pumpkin pie every draft. I'm just trying to figure out how that even is possible. More so than draft cliche, I'm just trying to get, how do you get to the point where you can eat a complete pie? I like one of the, like how people have certain demands when they're in like the green room, you have to have like green M&Ms or whatever. I guess one of his things is like you have to have a certain amount of pumpkin pies for the 3 days of the draft. I don't know how that works remotely this year, but I don't know.
The draft is 3 days. I could easily kill a pumpkin pie in 3 days.
No, but no, I'm talking about like 3 total, so 1 each day.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Definitely not pumpkin.
I might be able to do that.
Did you get some Reese's peanut butter cups at the Senior Bowl practices? Were they aplenty?
They usually are. COVID's kind of ruined everything, So we were. I'm making light of that. I don't mean to make fun, but this year we were sectioned off from like where the teams and the scouts are, and usually they hand out different things like the Reese's, and it's kind of like the way that my wife lets me back in the house, like. If I don't bring back a certain amount of Reese's, like all my stuff's in the front lawn and the locks have been changed. So like I have to, even if I have to go to the gas station, if I forget, like I just can bring back a few of the, and then randomly I'll like be packing my bag and find like random packs of this that I forgot were in there just because there's always little like grab bags. You'll also walk around and there's the life-size Reese's guy or gal, I don't know who's inside the costume, which is always a little bit terrifying and also like kind of. Like smiling, so you're kind of like, oh, this is friendly, but it's odd because it's taller than me, so it's kind of a weird dynamic. But definitely Reese's make sure that they get their branding, their money's worth. But this year I didn't see any Reese's. At least we didn't get any, so I'll have to catch up, which is probably for the better. But I'll have to catch up next time.
Before we let you go, got to mention that Seattle Seahawks helmet. How about our Griffin guys up in the Great Northwest?
Yeah, they're both free agents. We saw Shaquem get released earlier this, right after training camp, and then Seattle, of course, signed him back to the practice squad. Shaquille's a free agent. He's due for a sizable raise. I know he said that his final. The Seahawks are one of the teams that I cover during the NFL season and in the off season. But his final press conference, he mentioned that he wanted to be a Seahawk for life. But it'll be interesting to see what happened. He had, I think, an up and down season. Obviously, he had the Pro Bowl season. A year ago, and then this season I think he struggled with some injuries, but he's definitely gonna have a free agent market just without how important the cornerback position has been. I think it's gonna be another situation where they're a package deal. Like I think wherever he'll sign, he wants to make sure that Shaquem. He hasn't told me this is like inside information. It's just my assessment from hearing him talk about it. My guess is he wants to sign somewhere, whether it's in Seattle or elsewhere, where Shaquem's gonna have a shot to also earn a roster spot. And the Seahawks philosophy has always been to kind of, they're not usually going to be top dollar for free agents. That's just kind of their philosophy. And so it'll be interesting to see if he gets a better offer from another team. He's going to have an opportunity to make generational wealth in this next contract because he's coming off his rookie deal. So I'm sure he wants to make sure he maximizes the contract, which he should. So it's kind of a tug of war there between what the Seahawks are going to be willing to pay him. They need that position. Their secondary with, he fit well with Jamal Adams, but they just had so many injuries and the defense struggled this year. So I know that he wants to remain in Seattle, but the question is whether they're going to financially meet what the market's going to demand for him. He's definitely not going to be without suitors. There's going to be a ton of teams interested in him.
We'll give Jonathan Adams a follow at John D. Adams, sports contributor at Heavy.com. We'll have Seahawks coverage. We'll talk about the Knights as well, and we appreciate you joining us on the Sons of UCF Live this Thursday.
Thanks, fellas.
Thanks. Thank you. All right, well, that's some interesting stuff. If you guys had to guess, how many guys you think get drafted in the NFL? We thought Marlon for sure. It sounds like Richie's his stock has gone up, and I don't know about Jacob Harris, but 2, 3?
I'm going to go 4.
4?
Yeah, I'm going to go Robinson, Grant. I think Gowan may sneak in there. I think speed helps. I think, he's got some impressive tape, although it's not a lot of tape. And I got to – listen, I'm the co-founder of the Marlon Williams fan club along with JP Gilbert, so I got to go with Marlon Williams there.
I think Grant and Robinson are for sure going to get drafted. Marlon, I think, is close to a sure thing. And then maybe Gowan, maybe Harris, maybe as many as 5. It's possible. Definitely at least 3.
At least 3, could be 5. And we got 4 in the middle. Interesting. I didn't think going into this NFL draft that it would be quite so chock full of nights, but certainly the Senior Bowl practices helped a couple of guys, and it looks like a good number. Anywhere between 3 and 5 would be a good day. Good couple of days.
Yeah, don't forget there's also Otis. There's Greg McCray, right? Now, obviously, running backs are sort of a disposable position these days in the NFL. So maybe those guys are guys that sign, undrafted free agent deals. But I think there could certainly be a slew of nights, hopefully making the rounds. Typically, you have your historical one night goes to Jacksonville concept. So we'll figure out which one of these will be a Jaguar. That happens every year. So pick your Jaguar between that group. But yeah, I think there could be a slew of movement. To answer your question, Mike, I don't know the record of how many UCF guys drafted in a class. That's a good trivia question for anybody out there who may know quickly. They can throw it in the chat for us.
It's the kind of thing that might get you a hat.
Is this an indictment on Heupel? I mean, you got 5 guys going in the draft, and the team was basically barely over 500. I can do a contest for the hat. Maybe not for this, but how about a Super Bowl contest? How about a predict the score, and we'll do an MVP. Who is the MVP tiebreaker or something? Come up with the thing right now on the show.
You're announcing a contest right here.
Workshopping it right now. This is how we do the podcast, Trace. This is behind the scenes of how I hit the record button and Mike's like, "Hey, do you think we should do this?" And we start talking about it. So
I do enjoy when he asks you questions that you're not necessarily well prepared for. You scramble, you get answers most of the time, or you make things up.
I got a filibuster. I've got an iPad. I've got a phone. I've got a computer. I've got multiple devices so that I can try to search for whatever's on Mike's mind that day.
You got to keep him on his toes. Keep him honest. He's a bright guy. He figures it out most of the time.
Well, as we wrap up going around the kingdom a little bit, Mike, if you've tired on men's basketball, plenty of spring sports coming. Baseball, softball, men's and women's soccer, volleyball off to 3-0 start. McKenna Melville shining as expected, AAC Offensive Player of the Week. Here's a question for you. When do you play a conference opponent, but it's not a conference matchup? The UCF's got a pair with Tulane. They've got a regular conference slate, but in this still trying to build a schedule and add games, they're playing each other Friday, Saturday, but it's not considered a league game. So a league opponent, but not considered a league game. It's going to be a different kind of spring for a lot of UCF sports for sure. I caught up with head coach Todd Dagenet following the most recent win, and he talked about Tulane's pretty good team.
I mean, they scheduled us for a reason. They scheduled us because they wanted a conference level match. There's a lot of smart people that think that they'll win that side of the conference. Now, SMU and Houston and Wichita are going to have something to say about that, but Tulane certainly is one of the favorites. So we're going to get an idea of how we fare against the other side of the conference right away. This could very well be a semifinal or a final conference championship matchup.
I know Mike likes to play the looks like game, by the way. As I was making that clip, all I could think of was that he looks like the kind of guy who would play a villain in a movie, like a criminal villain. I don't know why I get that vibe off of Coach Dagenet there. I apologize in advance, Coach, but he looks like a movie villain to me.
Like a James Bond villain, maybe?
Is it because of the hairstyle or lack thereof? Is that what it is?
We have these lovely hats, though, Trace. If you're interested,
I've been interested for months. It's a PO Box 951. Anyway.
Well, Trace, you stay close to the volleyball team. Obviously, to your point, truncated season. But what do you think the outlook is? Obviously, you mentioned Tulane being a good team. How do you think UCF stacks up, and how would you assess sort of what you think they can accomplish in the league this year?
I think, as Coach Dagenet has said, no one predicted to win the AAC has ever won it. UCF heavily favored. McKenna Melville, All-American, really bolsters a pretty strong lineup of players. But COVID and disruptions, you don't know what you're going to have. We see it with women's basketball. It's been rolling along now. Third straight COVID postponed game has really disrupted their schedule, and I think we've seen that it's impacted the men as well. if they can get their games in with minimal COVID disruption, I think they're a strong team. Waiting for them to crack the top 25, couple more wins, perhaps that will happen. And UCF went pretty deep last year, but that no longer good enough for the program. They want to go even further in the NCAA tournament. And, there are a lot of blue bloods and seasoned programs, a lot out west and California and the like that are well-established Midwestern Big Ten teams in volleyball. But UCF has made a name for itself in volleyball. And really, I think you have a chance here when you look at the sports. Men's and women's tennis, top 25 ranked, top 20 ranked. Baseball, softball, likely to be ranked in preseason projections, top 25, and some of the early ones they are. It's setting up to be a pretty strong spring, and I think volleyball is looking good so far. You find these games on ESPN Plus. I know a favorite of Mike's, ESPN Plus, but you'll find everything is on there. Soccer debuts, men's soccer debuts this weekend. And what I'm looking forward to is the baseball schedule's out. And I know Mike's posted this on Twitter, and it was when he posted it on Twitter, I thought, maybe I'll go down and visit Mike, who I've seen, one time in person in all these years. UCF opens with FAU in Orlando, February 19th. Then the 20th and 21st, they're in Boca Raton.
Yeah, we got to definitely at least pick one of those, the Saturday or Sunday game. We don't know the times yet. But you come down to one of those games, I will have a hat waiting for you. Give it to you in person. I'm thinking about it now. I don't think I've ever seen you wear any kind of hats, ever. Have you ever worn a hat?
Look at me. What do you think I've worn a hat? I'm in the Sunshine State. What, are you kidding?
I've never seen it. I've never seen a walk and talk with a hat.
I think he had does a snow situation count? Because I think you had some sort of a beanie on at one point, no?
I try to be versatile. I wore my Peach Bowl jacket. It was brisk yesterday for the walk and talk. And again, I traded in the shacket for the jacket, fresh off my Zoom interview for AD. And I have to dig out my hats. Maybe that'll be the walk and talk. Try and look the part for this live extravaganza. Soul, as I believe you are now listing it as in the podcast feed for those that missed the live show on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can listen to it just as you do the Sons of UCF and your regular downloadable content. I like that. Soul. We have soul. The three amigos have soul.
I didn't get. Can I get your answer on the Jonathan Adams question? Pumpkin pie, yay or nay? Mike?
Nay. No.
It's not my first choice of pie, but I don't turn down any pie, so I would eat it if that's all we had. But there's about 4 other pies I'd take ahead of it.
Well, so what's worse? So Mel Kiper eating a pie per day of the draft, or I believe it's rumored, Mike, you may know this factually, that Bud Selig ate a hot dog every single day of his life. So what's worse, pumpkin pie every day or a hot dog every day?
Anything every day is just, I don't know.
Not anything every day, Mike. I mean, it's silly here.
I don't know if I could do a hot dog every day either. I'd probably eat like 5 hot dogs a year. And 3 of them will probably be in Boca during the game when we go in a couple of weeks. But I guess I'd go with the pie if I had to pick. I'm more of a dessert guy, I guess.
Adam, how far are you from Boca? You were just down there for the bowl.
Stone's throw, Trace. Yeah, I mean, I'm in the car. I'm there 6.5 hours. So stone's throw away. But if they're playing anywhere in Jacksonville, I'm.
They are playing in Jacksonville. Wow.
I'm there.
That's motivation to come up and visit you too.
Yeah, you're dead smack in the middle, Trace, right? You can go either direction for us there.
If I go to Boca, I get a hat. If I go to Jacksonville, I get a pumpkin pie or a hot dog.
I actually have 2 hats. One my little guy has. I could clean that off a little bit, and you'll never know the difference.
This is true. So, what do you think now? Wrapping up the show, athletic director Friday, or does it go into next week? I mean, you can't imagine something like this from a announcement press conference standpoint that you want occurring on a Saturday or Sunday. Something Friday, or do we go into next week?
Yeah, my guess is probably tomorrow. I mean, if you're not a part of what Brandon Helwig does at UCFsports.com, you should definitely check that out. A lot of good information there. Yeah, I think there's a lot of tea leaves that are saying that the candidates will be whittled down and there'll be a select few. And at that point, it's just kind of selection at that point. So my assumption is hopefully Friday we get that news. If not, it'll be till Monday. And then, obviously a coach will soon follow. So I'm gonna go Friday with 0 inside information.
Well, the opening is still available to to apply online until tomorrow. I don't know what time they cut that off. You don't expect them to dump it on Saturday or Super Bowl Sunday.
No.
So if it's not done tomorrow by what time? 4 o'clock? You figure it might not happen until Monday.
Well, even 4 o'clock. I mean, 4 o'clock Friday is the typical Friday news dump, right? So you'd want to get something out there if you're going to do it 10, 11 a.m. so you can get a 1, 2, 3 o'clock press conference going. But a news dump at 4 and a press conference at 8 o'clock on a Friday is not really going to get a lot of pub outside of probably us three.
Well, it's most likely online and via Zoom still for the television stations that have newscasts at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. They want enough advance notice that they can get some sound and get it on their sportscast. So that late in the afternoon, that's why you see a lot of those scrums and media availabilities late morning, mid-morning, late morning, so that they can turn it around. Do you think, as we wrap up, do you think that whoever Dr. Cartwright chooses, part of that conversation is who he has in mind, that athletic director he or she has in mind for head coach, and that the announcement might come fairly quickly? So let's just say a Friday or Monday announcement. As we sit here a week from today, we also have a coach to talk about.
I gotta hope that the first question that was asked of this athletic director candidates is, hey, by the way, pretty much every player on the football team wants a certain coach. How are you going to handle that when you get in here, right? And I think that's the biggest question you have to answer. I think probably some people have their short list of coaches that they want to talk to, and hopefully those coaches, and obviously Jeff Lebby is the player's choice from what we can tell. Hopefully he's on that list and he's a part of the vetting process. So I got to think, really soon after that, I got to think that's a huge part of the questioning process is who's on your list, who's in your mind, who's a good fit. I wouldn't think that they would sit down with an AD and say nothing about what your thoughts are on the potential biggest hire for your university.
The AD has to have a coach already in mind, but if he's taking the job on Monday, I don't know if he can legally or just announce somebody on Tuesday. He's probably going to have to make it seem like he's going through a process, interviewing at least a handful of guys. And maybe by Thursday, maybe by this time, or maybe you're looking at Monday of the following week.
Well, it has definitely not been, in January as we go into February, a slow period of news for UCF. There has been a lot happening. You can catch up with it on the Sons of UCF podcast and on the weekly Sons of UCF live show, Soul, as it is listed in the pod feed. For Adam and Mike, I'm Trace Trolko. Thanks for joining us. Go Knights!
Sorry, John.
Our John, guys.